up all of your favorite recipes. Simply Food.
You should know by now that you're in for a treat.
Simply Food.
There's no other channel where you'd rather be.
Simply Food. Seafood, pasta, cakes, and pies. Sing and laugh and even cry. Like and share and hit subscribe. Simply Food by TY.
What's up, you guys? It's your boy Simply Food by TY, and like I promised, I told you guys that I was going to show y'all one final way to make use of all of that leftover turkey meat that y'all had left, be it either right after Thanksgiving or maybe, you know, if y'all just want to hold off until Christmas time because you got it in the freezer. At least now you guys will have a recipe on how to make a delicious and extremely simple and quick turkey pot pie. So as you guys can see right now, I'm breaking down some celery, some onions, and some carrots. Now, of course, when it comes to pot pies, you honestly can kind of really add in whatever you would like in regards to the vegetables. Some people like to add potatoes, some people add mushrooms, asparagus, green beans. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You really can add in whatever you would like. The only thing I would say is that if you're going to be using vegetables like peas, corn, carrots, you know, things of that nature, that you want to have a little bit of bite to, I would suggest you using frozen carrots, frozen peas, frozen corn, because if you add it in straight from the can, it's going to turn into pretty much mush. The vegetables that we're prepping right now are supposed to turn into a soft texture. We're going to cook these down until they're nice and translucent. That's totally fine. But what we're going to add later on, that's the stuff that you want to have a little bit of bite to. You want to have a little bit of, you know, texture to that. So just be mindful of, you know, the type of vegetables that you add in later on down the line, because you don't want to overcook them. So I had I would say about 4 to 5 stalks of celery. I only used about a half of an onion that I minced down, and I had 2 large carrots that I broke down to a mince. So now that we have our veggies all prepped, we can go on ahead and move over to the stove top. I'm adding in roughly about a tablespoon or so of olive oil and about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter. And I'm going to go ahead and add in all of these veggies, and I'm going to just, you know, I don't want to say fry them, but I definitely want to get them nice and translucent. I want them to be nice and soft. To that, we can go on ahead and add in, you know, just a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. You don't want to add in too much because we're going to be adding in some seasonings later on. So for right now, we're going to add in some salt just to bring out the water from the veggies. So that was roughly, you know, I would say about a pinch or 2. And we're also going to add in some black pepper as well. You can go on ahead and allow that cook down until it's nice and translucent. And while that's working on that, we can move on over to our turkey. So this is the leftover turkey that I had, and as you guys can see, I had quite a bit. Don't feel like you need to like overstuff this. I promise you, you know, I ended up not even really using all of this. I would say altogether, I maybe used about 4.5 or so full cups of the chopped turkey, and as you can see, I really minced it down. I love for my pot pies for the filling to, I want the filling to all kind of be very consistent. You know, I want all of the bits and pieces to all kind of be around the same size. I don't like big chunks. However, you know, if you want to have bigger chunks so that you can really tell the difference between, you know, the potato and the turkey or the chicken or whatever the case is, you can absolutely do so. But let's add in a few seasonings. We're going to add in a little bit of Badia's complete seasoning. Now, this, once again, is truly going to depend on how well seasoned your turkey is. I don't really have to add in that many seasonings because my turkey was pretty well seasoned to begin with. I'm going to also add in some parsley. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder, probably about 1.5 teaspoons of both of those. And then a little pinch of seasonal salt. As you go along, of course, you can add in more, but just remember, as I always say, it is far easier to add salt than it is to remove it. So right now, I'm just going to give this a good mix around. And as you guys can see, everything is kind of chopped about the same size, which is going to make the cooking time a whole heck of a lot easier. And then just the aesthetic of it, when you know, cut into that slice of your pot pie, it's just going to aesthetically look really, really pretty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to add in my cream of chicken soup. 1 full can of that. I think that's about a 12-ounce can is what I'm working with here. And I'm also going to be adding in cream of mushroom. Now, of course, you can swap those out. You can use 2 cans of cream of mushroom, 2 cans of cream of chicken, or, you know, you could omit them and use some other altered, you know, alternative item that you would like. But that's completely up to you. But you definitely only need 2. I'm going to start off with adding in about 4 tablespoons of whole milk. Now, of course, if you would like, you can use heavy whipping cream. I'm keeping it a little bit on the lighter side today, so that's the reason why I'm just going to use the whole milk versus using the heavy whipping cream like I do with my chicken pot pie, which if you would like to know how to make a chicken pot pie, that video just popped up right there on the screen. So feel free to click and check that one out as well. It's roughly the same recipe, just a few, differences. So now we're also going to be adding in about 1/3 of a cup of chicken broth. You don't want to add in too many liquids. That is one of the biggest mistakes that I oftentimes see people make when they make their chicken pot pies. They make them way too runny and way too loose. I like mine nice and thick. Just remember, as soon as that cream of mushroom and that cream of chicken get nice and warm, it's going to already thin out as is. And when you slice into your pot pie, you don't want it to be a runny mess. You want it to be nice and thick. So I'm going to let that cook for about 10 minutes or so. Make sure you're mixing it so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. As I stated earlier, you want to use some frozen veggies. So I'm going to be adding in about 1 full cup of frozen peas here. And only when I make turkey pot pies do I add in corn. But I'm only going to add in a 1/2 cup. I do not add in corn when I make my chicken pot pie. I don't know. It's something about the turkey that for some reason, I want corn in it. So I'm going to go on ahead and give this a good mix once again. And then once I get this mixed in, I'm going to put the top back on this, allow this to cook. This is around the time when you want to go on ahead and check for seasonings. See if you would like to add any additional seasonings. This would be a great time to check for salt. Mind you, that cream of chicken as well as the cream of mushroom has a lot of sodium in it. So that's the reason why I said you wanted to wait until after you added those 2 things in before you added in too much salt, just so that you can make sure that your dish is not going to be overly salty. So for now, put the top on it, let that come up to a nice little simmer, and then now your mixture is completely ready. And as you can see, I'm going to give you guys a close-up shot here in a second. You will see that the texture of this filling looks absolutely phenomenal. Okay, here we go. I mean, come on, y'all. Just look at that. That looks delicious already on its own, and we haven't even put it in the pie crust. Now, speaking of the pie crust, if you guys want to know how I make my buttery, flaky pie crust from scratch, I'm going to put a video up right here on the screen right now. You can click that so that you guys can make it from scratch if you want to. Just know you do not have to make it from scratch. You can absolutely already buy a fully made pie crust, that already comes in the canister and all of that. Or you can just go over to the refrigerator section and just get that Pillsbury pie crust and just roll it out and then, put it into your baking dish. You do not have to do it from scratch. You can make this very, very quickly, okay? So I'm going to be using what I think is about a 9-inch deep dish pie baking dish that I have here. And I like to do a bottom crust and a top crust. You don't have to do that. Some people like to just do a top crust, but for me, it's not a pot pie unless it has that bottom crust as well. And right now, all I'm simply doing is I'm just making sure that I have it nicely fitted in. You don't want to stretch it too much, because if you do, all it's going to do is shrink down as soon as it starts to cook. But you definitely want to make sure that it's pressed down on all of the sides. Doesn't have to be pretty. You don't need to worry about putting any fork marks in it. It's not going to puff up because that filling is really going to weigh it down anyway. So you don't really have to worry about that. Okay, now that I got that all situated, now we can go on ahead and add in that delicious filling. I mean, my God, just look at it. I mean, that literally looks so bomb already. And the thing about making homemade pot pies, y'all know what's in it. If you know that you're a person that likes a lot of meat in it, you'd be able to add that. If you know you're a person that likes to have a lot of potatoes or a lot of a particular type of vegetable, you have the ability to do that because you've made it from scratch. You've made it homemade. That's the best thing about it. And as you can see, the consistency of this filling is absolutely flawless. At this point, you want to go on ahead and have your oven preheated at 350 degrees because we are in the home stretch, people. So now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for another we're going to put on our top layer now. This one I actually like to roll out just a little bit thinner than I did the inside one. For the inside, I left it slightly on the thicker side, but for the top crust, I want to make sure that it's slightly on the thinner side. So once we get that nice and rolled out, we're going to go on ahead and we're going to pop that right on the top of our pie crust. An easy way to do that so that you guys can make sure that you don't rip it is I literally just take the pie crust, which you're going to see me do in a few seconds. I just really roll it directly onto the rolling pin, and then that way all I have to do is just roll it right over the top of the pie crust shell, and it just makes life a lot easier. So now that we got that all situated, let's move our pan back over, and now we can just fold this over on the top. Now, if you guys want to do some fancy design as far as, you know, what you want the top to look like, you can absolutely do that. If you have any extra scraps from, you know, your pie crust, you can absolutely add in some designs on the top, but it really isn't necessary. What I'm doing right now is I'm just essentially getting rid of any of the excess dough because I don't want too much of that hanging around. I'm crimping it around the edges with a fork. Once again, this is supposed to be rustic looking. It's homemade. You don't have to make it look like, you know, it's just come out of a restaurant, but trust me, this always looks hectic right now, but when it comes out of the oven, it always turns out beautiful looking. One thing to note, once you get, you know, it all crimped around the edges and all of that, you want to make sure that you go in with a knife and cut a nice slit in the middle of it so that some of that heat and the steam has somewhere to evaporate. You're gonna pop this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes or so. Keep an eye on it so that it doesn't get too dark. If you notice that it's starting to get too brown, put some aluminum foil over it. And then, my God, do y'all see this damn turkey pot pie? Baby. Now, I would highly advise you guys to allow it to sit for roughly about 10 to 15 minutes or so that it can get, you know, get nice and firm again. And then literally go in with a knife, get yourself a spoon, and I can promise you, if you allow it to cool and if you stuck with my directions, I can bet you it's going to come out nice and solid. It's not going to be a runny mess. All of the filling isn't going to all flow. Like, watch when I take this out. You guys are going to see what I'm talking about here in a few seconds. Look at that. As you can see, it's staying in place. It's not runny. It's not soupy. It's nice and firm. That's exactly what you want. Look, if you guys are new to my channel, welcome to Simply Food by TY. If you're one of my returning subscribers, you babies know I love you guys so much. I thoroughly hope you guys have enjoyed this video. As you can see, that filling is staying exactly the way I want it to be. I hope you all try out this recipe and enjoy the rest of your holiday season. Until next time, y'all babies stay cute and take care. Bye, guys.
Slaying in the kitchen.
Simply Food by TY.
We hope that you enjoyed it.
Simply Food by TY. If you haven't took the time, make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Simply Food.